When I come out here, I don't usually have a plan. I just walk and see what turns up. A fragile silhouette, so thin it barely holds its own shape against the light. A fantastic edible screaming for attention. And some that feels more alien than natural, but this is how it's meant to be. I have spent years walking these forests, basket in hand, hunting for mushrooms for consumption, photography, and for the calming presence of nature itself. I search for mushrooms in all shapes, color and form, not just to identify them or even eat them, but to see what they really are. Ephemeral, intricate, and strangely beautiful. I will show you a few examples of what I mean. My name is Odin, and welcome to Fungi of the North. Let's begin with something familiar. This is the Chanterelle, recognized by foragers around the world and cherished for good reason. Its golden color stands out even in deep shade, thick wavy edges with false gills that run down the stem. And that scent, mildly fruity, sometimes compared to apricots or damp moss. It's one of the most reliable wild edibles in Europe, often found beneath birch and spruce. And for many, this is the gateway mushroom, the one that turned a walk in the woods into a lifelong habit. And for generations they've been a symbol of bountiful summer forests, reliable, beloved, and never taken for granted. Not everything has to be strange or hard to find. Sometimes the familiar is just as worth admiring, when you stop long enough to see it. At first glance, this just looks like an ordinary piece of wood, but that color is a bit off. This blue-green stain is a sign that something small has been at work here. At first, all you notice is this strange green tint, but if you look closer, really closer, tiny cup-shaped mushrooms begin to appear, not much bigger than a grain of rice. They grow quietly on damp, decaying wood. These are called green Elfcups, and they don't announce themselves with size or shape, but with color. The vivid blue-green stain left behind in the wood is often the only sign they've been here at all. This stained wood, sometimes called green oak or blue stain, has been used for centuries in fine woodworking, from Renaissance intarsia to decorative inlays still made today. So, the forest hides a lot in plain sight, and sometimes all it takes to see something new is to look a little closer. By now, you have probably noticed this isn't about collecting or even teaching. That will come later. For now, I'm just here to observe and maybe capture something fleeting, a shape, a texture, a moment in time before entropy kicks in. Of course, I'll tell you what I find because knowing is part of seeing. Some may be familiar and some are rare, and some you've likely never noticed before, but all of them, at the right moment, are worth stopping for. Not everything lives fast and dies young. Some fungi grow like sculptures, layered, solid, and unmoving. This is Fomes fomentarius, often called the tinder bracket or the hoof fungus. Unlike the delicate species we usually think of, this one doesn't vanish overnight. It grows slowly over months and years, building itself into a hard woody bracket, each layer like the rings of a tree, marking the passage of time. It's not edible, but it is useful. For centuries, it was prized for its ability to catch and hold an ember, a living spark that could mean survival. Some cultures used it and still use it to dye textiles, others for crafting or sharpening blades. When the Iceman Ötzi was discovered frozen in the Alps, they found a piece of this mushroom in his pouch, tucked away as a means to stay warm. So, while it looks like a fossil of the forest, it once helped people survive. A strange kind of companion, growing from death but preserving warmth. This is Cortinarius brunneus. It's not much to look at, just another small brown mushroom at first glance. But this is actually part of one of the largest and most complex genus of mushrooms that we have. The genus Cortinarius, or webcaps as they are commonly called, is huge, with thousands of species. Some are bright and colorful, others completely plain, but most of them share one key feature, the cortina. a fine web-like veil that protects the gills when the mushroom is young. It usually disappears quickly, but if you catch it at the right time, it's unmistakable. These mushrooms are notoriously hard to identify, and many look almost identical and even change appearance as they mature. Some experts have spent entire careers studying just this group, but they exist everywhere, from deep coniferous forests to mossy hillsides. And once you learn to spot them, you start noticing just how varied and strange they can be. So while this one might not stand out, it's part of a much bigger and more fascinating picture. On this spruce tree there's a wound in the bark where the sap is leaking, and most people would see nothing here. Perhaps only a few orange specks of dust caught in the resin. But come a little closer and we can see that these tiny dots are cup or disc-shaped mushrooms, Zythia resinae, and they only grow like this, directly on conifer resin. It's a perfect example of what I find so fascinating, a microhabitat, a single tree wound, and already something has evolved to live in it. You could pass 1,000 trees and never see this twice, but once you do, you start looking at the forest a bit differently. Some mushrooms draw attention to themselves with flashing colors, but this one does the opposite. This is the Delicatula integrella, or the veined bonnet, and you'll often find this fungi on broadleaf, preferably alder twigs, quietly nestled in the damp shade along forest streams or the mossy edges of old paths. It doesn't shout for attention. It's pale, almost translucent, barely tethered to the world around it. A mushroom so fragile, it seems closer to mist than matter. But once you stop and have a look, there's structure, a network of gills that ripple out like veins on paper-thin skin. But through the lens, it becomes something else entirely, a ghost caught in the act of existing. And then, there are the ones that doesn't look like mushroom at all. This is the yellow staghorn. Its form looks more like a coral than a fungus, a bright antler-like shape rising from rotting conifer wood. It's rubbery to the touch and almost artificial in color, as if it doesn't quite belong. And yet, here it is, thriving exactly where things are breaking down, and even though it isn't exactly edible, it doesn't really need to be. This is already doing something valuable, returning wood to earth and offering a sense of strange beauty along the way. Right behind me here at the forest's edge, there's a half circle filled with these mushrooms, and this is the fairy ring champignon. These don't grow in deep forests or on rotting wood, but out in the open, fields, parks and quiet clearings, and they often form perfect circles known as fairy rings. It's the kind of thing that makes you pause, wondering if there's more to the story than just spores and soil. These rings have stirred up folklore for centuries, tales of dancers, portals and places where time bends. But behind the myth is a clever little mushroom, hardy, persistent and known to return to the same spot year after year. These were just a few glimpses, but in time I'll share more. Not just moments like these, but also deeper dives into species, edibility and also foraging itself. There's a lot to explore, and if you're still here, I hope you'll come along.